Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to talk about the power of positivity. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host and executive coach, Adam Melnick. With over a decade of experience in mental health, leadership, and coaching, I aim to help you understand leadership through a mental health lens. So let's sit back, relax, and have a chat. Let's take a walk down memory lane, specifically to episode 5 of this podcast, how to create your one goal. And I would like you to think about, what is your one goal? What is your dream? What is the thing that everything is funneling into? Maybe it's to climb the corporate ladder. Maybe it's to start your own business. Maybe it's to live a quiet life down by the lake. I don't know. What I do know is if you would like to accomplish your dream, your goal, you need to be positive. Positivity is the tendency to be optimistic about life as a whole. It is understanding that you are going to have challenges and obstacles and not shying away from it, but looking at it and saying, we can overcome these problems. We can overcome these challenges. By simply having a positive outlook, by believing in your heart that you can accomplish your dreams, you will create a self-fulfilling prophecy where your actions will ensure that you succeed. Success and positivity go hand in hand. If you want to achieve your dreams, we need to be positive. We need to discard our pessimistic, cynical mind and engage in a mind that is optimistic, that believes that we will succeed no matter what. But here's the thing. Your own body is working against you. In episode 46, we talked about biases or heuristics, being mental shortcuts that your brain uses to process vast amounts of information to arrive at judgments or decisions quickly. You have a negativity bias. I have a negativity bias. It is theorized that this negativity bias came about from an evolutionary point of view. It was beneficial to look at the world through a negative lens. This allowed us to prepare for the worst and ensuring our own survival and passing along our genes. This has evolutionary benefits. The problem is that the negativity bias naturally filters out any positivity that we may be experiencing within our life. This is particularly true of individuals that typically watch a lot of news or social media, and they are inundated with a bunch of negative information, and thus it builds and strengthens that negativity bias. To help illustrate this, I would like you to think about a day when things just went wrong. Think about what it was that went wrong in that day that caused you to feel the way that you did. Now I would like you to think about the positive things that happened within that day as well. What you'll notice is that you can't actually remember the positive or good things that happened. You only remember the bad things. This is normal. This is your negativity bias. I remember when I first started conquering my negativity bias, and I was going through my days thinking about how awful each day was. And I started a positivity journal where I started talking about all the good things that were happening in my day. And what I noticed is I was hyperfixating on maybe one or two negative things that happened in my day and discarding all the positive things, which was blowing my mind. One day, I had a negative interaction with a client, and that just threw me for a loop. But within that same day, I got a message from a loved one saying how amazing I was. I got a positive review from another client, and I got a free milkshake from a friend. That was a pretty good day. Sure, I had a negative run-in with a client, but all in all, when we look at the scales, that's really nothing. That's just a drop in the bucket about all the amazing good things that were happening to me at the same time. And it's the same thing for you. You have so many amazing positive things that are happening to you right now that you are just discarding, you're throwing away because you have that negativity bias. It's important to note, though, you can change it. You can help consciously dismantle or weaken that negativity bias and instead build up a positive viewpoint or an optimistic lens. But this has to be a conscious choice. Let me repeat that. It is a conscious choice to be positive. You will always skew naturally to the negative. As a coach once said to me, you can take everything from someone except their positivity. The only one who can take that away is themselves. But before we get into how to change your mindset into one of positivity and weaken that negativity bias, let's talk a little bit about why should you be positive? Why should we be optimistic? Well, first and foremost, it helps improve your resiliency or the ability to cope with problems by simply believing that at the end of the day, everything is going to work out. All your problems, all your obstacles or setbacks are just bumps in the road. Things that can easily be overcome because, again, they're not problems. They're just a part of the journey. I remember one of my friends being fired from his job and at first thinking that this was going to be devastating. To be fired, to lose your job and be told essentially you're not good enough or we're not looking for someone like you. But when I talked to him, I realized that he was an incredibly optimistic individual. And he said, sure, I got fired, but this is for the best because now I can start pursuing my dreams. Now I can spread my wings and pursue my goal. To him, because he had this optimistic mindset, he viewed it as nothing more than a speed bump. Sure, it didn't work out. Sure, it sucked. But hey, at the end of the day, it'll all work out well. And it did. He ended up going back to school for personal training, and he became a successful personal trainer. This is what it means to just be resilient through positivity. The next reason why you should increase your positivity is because people gravitate towards positive people. I remember a few years ago, I was negative. I was incredibly burnt out because I was doing a very stressful job. A bunch of bad things happened to me at that time in my life, and I was in the midst of a deep, deep depression. I was incredibly cynical. I was incredibly negative. And the thing is, nobody wanted to hang out with me. And personally, I don't blame them. I wouldn't even want to hang out with myself. But I went to the gym, I got in shape, and I did a lot of work on changing my mindset from a negative one into a positive one. And what I noticed is that people started migrating or gravitating towards me. They wanted to be around me. They wanted to talk to me. They wanted to glean some of my positivity for their own life. And that's just it. If you're trying to be a leader, by simply being positive, people will gravitate towards you. They will give you their power or social influence to help you do what you need to do. Can you imagine a politician running for office and essentially saying, hey man, if you vote for me, nothing good will happen, your life won't get better, and the government's going to instead push down on you and crush you? Holy moly, nobody would vote for them. Because again, nobody wants to be around negative people, and they certainly don't want negative people in charge. The next reason is being positive increases your mental health and decreases your stress. Think about it. If you fundamentally believe that nothing will work out, that all is for naught, then you will never try new things, you will never get out of your bubble, and you will sink into a deep depression. But if you believe that at the end of the road, things will be fine, that you will succeed, then you will have the motivation to change and do the personal growth necessary to come out the other side like a winner, a champion. By being positive, we view the negativity in our life as nothing more than speed bumps, things that can be overcome. It is mind-boggling how amazing positivity can be to ourselves and our own personal well-being. And lastly, if you believe that you will succeed, then you will. As somebody that may be in a leadership position, if you believe that your team will succeed, then all of your team will come together and create a self-fulfilling prophecy, ensuring that they succeed. But the opposite is also true. If you believe you are doomed to fail, then you guys will act in a way that will ensure your failure. Don't do this. If you want to accomplish your dreams, you need to believe that everything will end okay. I must give you a word of warning. There is such thing as being too positive. I've met those people. You've met those people. We never want to become what is called toxic positive. This is where you are excessively positive or overgeneralized positivity across all situations, regardless of emotions or circumstance. Toxic positivity is destructive. It does not build us up. It does not help us get to our goals, but it instead tears us down. It does this by simply brushing off problems or minimizing a person's experience or negative emotion and not allowing them to really sit in it. Think about a friend who recently went through a breakup. This is a terrible situation. They need to wallow in those emotions. But a toxic positive person won't allow the individual to just sit with those emotions, to just be. Instead, they'll use slogans like, you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, or there's other fish in the sea. They use slogans to really minimize the trials or tribulations that an individual has. This causes a rift between the two people, where one person doesn't really feel heard or helped in any way and feels like they're being brushed aside. This can ultimately damage the relationship and require a lot of work on the toxic positive person to repair. But typically what I see is those individuals, because they're so positive, they don't actually see the damage that they've done. Toxic positive people will also brush off problems, real issues that need to be addressed. Here's a real dating example that I've seen time and time again. There was one girl I remember working with, and she had over 100 dates, and yet no guy would date her. She was complaining to her friends about this situation, and her friends were being toxic positive. And they were saying, you're beautiful, you're a queen, you don't need to change, all men are awful. The reality was that she had a lot of problems herself that she needed to work on, maybe through therapy, maybe through some self-discovery work, maybe through a coach. It didn't matter. But she had some problems that were holding her back in the dating sphere of things. And when she came to me for coaching, we had to work through some of those problems to help get her to her destination. This is also extremely common in the workplace. I remember working at a hospital, and management decided to do what's called workforce transformation, which is essentially a big way of saying we are expecting our nursing staff to do more with less. And the nurses at the time brought up some very big concerns. They said, hey, I understand this is what we want to do, but these are our resources and they're already super tight, and we're worried people may die if you roll this out. Well, management decided to be very toxic positive. They said, don't worry, it'll be fine, and they simply rolled it out. Well, here's the thing. The day they rolled it out, they had multiple patients have cardiac arrests. It was horrific, and management had to go back to the drawing board. If they had simply listened to the nursing staff and heard their problems, they could have problem solved around it and ensured that those patients didn't experience such a horrific event. And that was a consequence of toxic positivity. And lastly, toxic positive individuals have a disconnect between themselves and their emotions. The more positive they are, the greater this disconnect is, to the point that they may not actually understand what emotions they are experiencing because they're suppressing them. And the problem being is that everyone around them sees this. They look at this individual as if they're wearing a mask that is fake. And remember how we talked about in positivity, people migrate towards you? Well, if you're toxic positive, people try to keep you at arm's length because they don't trust you. They don't really understand what's going on beneath the surface because you don't understand yourself or what's going on beneath the surface. And it can cause what is called cognitive dissonance, or a problem with your actions and your words. Toxic positivity can be incredibly destructive, which is why we never want to lean too far into positivity. Yes, we want to have an optimistic lens that ultimately everything will work out just fine, that we will succeed, that our people will succeed. But we also need to acknowledge the negative. We need to acknowledge the problems. We need to acknowledge when people are having a tough time and allow them to sit in that negativity. As your coach, when you come to me and life is really beating you up, I will allow you to sit in that negativity. I will allow you to process it. But ultimately, my job is also to move you into the positive. And when you're ready, I will push you into that positive and help pull you up, because we have dreams to accomplish. We have goals to meet. And to repeat myself again, this is what we want to be. We want to believe that ultimately everything will work out, that you will succeed, but also acknowledging the hardships, the pain, the suffering, the struggles that we go through, allowing yourself to wallow when things are going poorly for you, but also not staying there, accepting that this is a roadblock or an obstacle that we can overcome, and then picking ourselves up when we're ready to help move us forward. This is positivity. This is what we want. So how do we move from a negativity bias into a positive framework? The first thing to do is acknowledge that you have a negativity bias. I have a negativity bias. And accept that when bad things happen to you, you are going to put a heavier weight on it, which means that we have to consciously think about the good or the positive things that are happening within our life. The easiest way to do this is to start a positivity journal, where every day you write down 3 good things that are happening in your day. Just 3. That's all I ask. It could be as simple as someone just said hi to me, or as in depth as someone took me on a date and paid for all of it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it was a positive thing that happened to you. I myself, when I was changing my mindset, I had a positivity journal where every single day I wrote down 3 positive things, and I will be honest, it was difficult at the start. My negativity bias was so entrenched that I couldn't see any positive things that were happening within my day. And I had to really work on it to bust down those walls and start saying, hey, I woke up, I had breakfast today, I arrived to work on time, and a coworker said hi to me. Positive. If I can do it, I know you can too. The next thing is focus on what you can control. Typically, I talk to my clients and I always suggest that they remove social media and the news out of their life because, let's be honest, things that are happening halfway across the world are horrific and awful, yet you don't have any control over them. Because it's something that you can't control, all it does is feed into your negativity bias, where you see the world as a dark and dangerous place. Instead, focus on what you do have control over. I remember working with a client who was upset with her husband because he smoked and she wanted him to stop. but that wasn't within her control. And focusing on something that wasn't in her control was creating a lot of stress and negativity in her life. Through her coaching session, she was able to switch her mindset from one of, let's fixate on something that I can't control, to something that I can control. And what she could control is her attitude and response to the smoking. This resulted in her leading a much happier and more fulfilling life. The next thing is you need to believe you are going to succeed. I know if you're stuck in negativity, this is hard to do. It was hard for me. But I created a mantra that I wrote on my mirror that said, I will succeed at whatever I'm doing. And I said that to myself every single day. When I started a new project, I said, I will succeed. When I started this podcast, I said, I will succeed. As a result, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy and you will subconsciously ensure that you will. Any problems or obstacles now just seem like little blips on the radar that you can overcome. And what you'll notice is that your thinking is going to switch from this is an insurmountable obstacle to how do I overcome this bump in the road? By simply changing your mindset, I know you will succeed and accomplish your dreams. To recap, positivity is the tendency to be optimistic about life as a whole. This is a choice that you have to consciously make because as humans, we naturally skew towards the negativity. Because we have this negativity bias, we naturally filter out any of the positives that are going on within our life, meaning we have to actively choose to become positive. And this is important because being positive has many benefits. The first one is it improves your resiliency or the ability to cope with problems. 2, people will gravitate towards you. 3, it decreases your stress and improves your mental health. And 4, if you believe you will succeed, then you will succeed. You'll create a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. That being said, it's important to not become toxic positive, which is an excessive, ineffective, or overgeneralized positivity across all situations regardless of emotions or experiences. Being toxic positive is incredibly destructive because 1, it doesn't allow us to see any problems or obstacles that we may be facing because we are too busy minimizing it and trying to become positive, much to the detriment of ourselves and those around us down the road. 2, it can cause wedges between us and our people because we are not allowing our people to experience negative emotions or situations and instead are minimizing it or using slogans to kind of brush off their needs, making them not feel heard or wanted. And lastly, people that are toxic positive will have a disconnect between their true feelings and what they're expressing. This will come across as a mask that they're wearing, which will cause mistrust with those around them because others will see this and they say, I don't really understand what their motivations or true feelings are. And the truth is the person who is being toxic positive may not even understand their own feelings. This causes individuals around them to keep them at arm's length. To switch ourselves into a positive mindset, we need to first acknowledge that we have a negativity bias and consciously look for the positive things that are happening within our life. You can do this with a positivity journal where every day you write down 3 positive things that have happened within your day. 2, we focus on what's within our control and we discard the things that are not in our control. This means that we remove social media and the news. And lastly, we need to expect that we will succeed, that we will accomplish our goals, maybe through a mantra, or maybe just recognizing when we're having negative thoughts about our goals or how we're moving forward and consciously changing that into a positive mindset. Thank you for joining me today. In the next episode, we will be discussing decision fatigue. I'll see you then. Cheers. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, give it a like, and share it with a friend. And if you're ready to take the next leap and improve your leadership skills, head over to www.seedingthelead.com Book your free coaching session today.